بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاسألوا أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون صدق الله العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم أما بعد. The first question that has been asked is regarding zakat on rent money. If someone has a property on rent, how is zakat for it calculated? And I will read the question they have asked. For example, they get £5,000 a year. Before it goes into the bank account, money is deducted for repairs. The leftover goes into the bank account. The money is still sitting in the bank account. When it's time to calculate zakat, they give 2.5% of everything that's in the bank account. Is that sufficient, or is there anything else? What about the repair money deducted? Is there zakat on that? Jazakallah. So the first thing to understand regarding a property that is on rent is, number one, is there zakat on the property itself? So the answer to this is that the thing that will be considered is your intention at the time of buying that property. So if when you bought that property, your primary intention was to buy that property for resale, that in the future you will sell that house on for tijarat, then the answer is, then there will be zakat on the property itself. And however, if your primary intention at the time of buying the property was not resale, was not to sell it on, then there will be no zakat on the property itself. And similarly, yesterday I got asked a question, is what if I possess a house, I own a house, a second house rather, and I've not even put it on rent? So again, that clarifies the answer, that if that second house was bought for your own personal use, the primary intention was not to sell it on, then there will be no zakat on it. So that is the first thing that needs to be clarified, that majority of the time when we have a house on rent, it's not really for resale, we have just put it on rent. So there will be no zakat in that situation on the property itself. Now the second question is how to calculate the zakat on the rent. So it will be necessary to pay zakat on the money earned from rent if when added to the rest of one's zakatable assets, which include cash, gold, silver, stocks, merchandise, etc., the total exceeds the nisab, which we mentioned yesterday was about £385. So it exceeds £385 after debts are deducted. So in other words, the rent money alone will not be considered when determining if zakat is necessary on you or not. Rather, the rent will be added with the other assets you possess, and if collectively they exceed the nisab value, then zakat will be necessary. And another misunderstanding lots of people have is generally the money, the rent earned, it goes straight into our bank account, into the bank account that we use on a daily basis. So now there is no need to calculate the rent money by itself again. Rather, for example, the rent money earned over the year was £12,000. That goes into your bank account. And from that bank account you spent for your own personal use, you bought food from it, bought clothes, petrol money, etc., etc. Now when your zakat due date arrives, you will look at how much money is in the bank account plus your other cash in hand, and you will minus it from your debts, and that is what zakat is necessary on. So it is just like another wage that is earned from your job. So there is no need to calculate it separately. So some people, what they see, for example, You earn, like we said, £12,000 from the rent over the year. They've put it into their bank account. They've spent some of that money as well. But what they'll do at the end of the year, when they're calculating their zakat, they'll look at the money that they have in their hand, they'll look at the money in the bank, and then on top of that, for some reason, they'll also add the rent money, £12,000 as well. Whereas that is not the ruling when you have put that in your main bank account. Yes, if for example somebody puts it into a separate bank account which they do not use on a daily basis, and that money is completely untouched, then yes, then what you will do is you will calculate the money from your main bank account, the cash in hands and all the other goods and etc., and then you will also add the money in that separate bank account as well. And here we have the brother that asked the question was about repairs. So let's just say, for example, the zakat due date was the 1st of Ramadan, and the rent earned between the 1st of Ramadan 2022 and the 1st of Ramadan 2023 was, like the brother gave the example himself, was £5,000. And from that £5,000, let's just say £2,000 was spent. Whatever it was spent for, it was used. And on the 1st of Ramadan, when 2023, when his zakat due date has come, in that separate bank account, he only has £3,000 remaining. So zakat will only be necessary on the £3,000 if it exceeds, obviously, when added with all his other goods and minus the debts, and if collectively they surpass the nisab. So hopefully that clarifies that masla. The khulasa of it and the conclusion, again I will say, is that number one, there is no zakat on the property itself if the primary intention was not resale. And number two, the way you will calculate your zakat on the rent money is if it goes into your normal bank account, then you just, there's no need to do any special calculations. You'll just see how much money I have in that bank account when the zakat due date arrives. And if it's in a separate bank account, then yes, then you will add it on with your other calculations. So hopefully that should clarify that masla as well. We have received another zakat masla, but I will I'll mention that now as well. That question was that my daughter has a silver ring, is zakat due on it or not? So the answer is that zakat is applicable on, number one, gold, regardless of whether it was bought with the intention of business or not. Regardless. If a person owns 87.480 grams of pure gold or more, then zakat will be necessary on it, regardless of whether that gold was bought for personal use or for tijarat, for business purposes. And zakat will also be applicable on silver. So the brother asked for that his daughter has a silver ring, so zakat will be necessary on silver as well, regardless of whether it was bought with the intention of resale or for business. If the person possesses 612.35 grams of silver, then zakat will have to be given. And a very important note as well that I may add to this is, if a person has, number one, gold, number two, silver, goods in trade, and cash, and individually they do not reach the threshold for zakat, but if you were to total them together, then the total value would exceed the nisab, the threshold for zakat, then zakat is wajib on the total amount. So let's just say, for example, a person had £100 worth of gold. This is just an example. £100 worth of silver. Again, individually, these are not meeting the threshold of £385, and he has cash £200. Again, that individually does not meet the threshold of £385. But when he adds all them together, he adds the gold, silver and cash money, that's £400, and that has exceeded the threshold of £385. Now zakat will be necessary on that £400. So sometimes you will not just look individually at how much the gold or silver costs or how much cash you have. You will add them all together, as we have just mentioned in the rent masla as well. So these were the two maslas regarding zakat. There are, alhamdulillah, a few people have asked a few questions regarding fasting. One was about an MRI scan, but we have run out of time for today. Inshallah, we'll clarify those tomorrow. The time for iftar has entered. Please read the dua. Allahumma inni laka sumtu wa bika amantu wa alayka tawakkaltu wa ala rizqika aftartu fataqabbal minni bismillahi ala barakatillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this fast. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen.